Well, I did not have it fade out that time. I forgot to have that little setting on the corner there. But anyway, welcome back, guys. Episode 8 now of NFL Elite Banter, which we've been going for 2 full streaming months. How are things going for you, Frey? Everything's pretty good?
Not too bad. Sorry I missed last week. It was me and my wife's 10-year anniversary, wedding
10
anniversary.
years.
10 years.
You know
She
what?
has put up with me. She is a saint.
Usually I would say congratulations to the both of you, but it's more like congratulations to you for still breathing after 10 years. And congratulations to her for probably not having as many gray hairs as she should. So
Right, and not killing me in my sleep. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think after 10 years of pissing her off, she wouldn't give you the luxury of sleeping through it.
Right.
She'd probably make you stay awake for that one.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
But so we missed you last week, obviously, and shout out to Shane Statmiller, like always, who came on last minute and kind of helped out a little bit there. So appreciate you, Shane. Thanks for always trying to help out when you can. But yeah, man. So it's been a little while since you've been on. Now I'm not sure if you saw any of the show from last week, but did you have any feedback from anything that we talked about? Any topics that you saw? Like, damn, I wish I could have did that one. Anything stand out to you at all from last week?
I mean, I'm always ready to talk everything. You know what I mean? Like, that's just me.
Well, I do want to ask you one question because this is one that actually got a lot of comments last week. And it's one that me and him kind of went back and forth on for about 15 minutes or so. The longest NFL playoff drought. Now, we talked about that last week being the Jets since 2010. We talked about, we talked about whatchamacallit as well, Miami as well for the conference and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
What team do you see out of like the bottom 5? I think it was like for conference championship games specifically. There was like Cleveland. I think it was Cleveland. It was Dallas. It was also Houston. It was Houston. And then it was Miami and the Jets. Which one of those 5 teams do you think would break that drought first? Who do you think that would be?
Well, I mean, if I had to pick one, shoot straight off the hip, I would feel like it would be the Jets, especially with that defense.
Chris? Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
And then with Aaron Rodgers potentially coming back next year, because that was the main thing with the Jets this year. They didn't have consistent quarterback play.
They went 7-10. People don't realize they still went 7-10.
Yeah, but you put a good quarterback in there.
Yeah,
it'd be reversed.
You put Rodgers in there. There's at least 3 wins. I mean, I would say at least it would have been at least 10-7, if not more than that. If you flip it. I mean, in my opinion, that's what it could have been. Right. I think they're going to be even better this year. To be honest, there's a couple rumors out there that could make the Jets dramatically better.
Well, I mean, they got weapons. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Garrett
They're
Wilson,
young.
great.
And they're young.
Brees Hall, that team's ready to compete. They just need that quarterback.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for tuning in, Craig from Patton. Hello, Chris Elliott. Good to see you. Thanks for the birthday wishes, man. I turned 30, nothing special. What's up, Craig from Patton? Always nice to have you on, man. But so we'll get moving a little bit. I just want to get your feel for that one because that was one of the big heated topics of last week. I actually had people messaging me on Facebook like, "You're crazy. How can you pick the Jets?" And I'm like, "Because the Jets have the best chance, to be honest."
And and I would say like Cleveland is up there a little bit, but you don't know what Nick Chubb's going to be when he comes back. Deshaun Watson isn't even a shadow of his former self.
Flacco's not going to be able to pull off the same heroics as he did last
year.
Right.
That offensive line isn't as good as it used to be.
Defense is, the secondary is not as good as it used to be. I mean, I would say there's a couple guys back there, but like for the most part, they're known for their front seven.
Right. And they still have, they have the quote unquote defensive player of the year. I won't let that go. So don't.
You're gonna do that. You're gonna do that. So anyway, when we keep talking about different rumors and things like that. So all-season rumors are obviously a big thing this time of year. Mm-hmm. One just popped up about 15-20 minutes ago as well. But one of the rumors I know you want to talk about. What did you have? You said there was a certain topic that you heard that was a rumor that you want to talk about.
I mean, obviously the elephant in the room is what's going on with Justin Fields. Yeah. I mean. I think Justin Fields could be a very, very good quality quarterback somewhere. I'm hoping he comes to Pittsburgh. I don't think it'll happen, but Atlanta, he goes to Atlanta. Justin Fields with those weapons could be dangerous. He could really flip it upside down there in Atlanta. And then I heard that not Oakland anymore. The Las Vegas Raiders could possibly be in for him too. So we have a little mini Justin Fields sweepstakes.
Can I be honest? And there's 2 sides to my opinion on this. Number one, I don't like Justin Fields. How I've been shit talking him all year. I was never a big fan. I don't think he's a big arm talent, which in today's NFL you have to be able to do. The ball has to be able to go down deep down the field. You can't play around with the short routes anymore like you used to. This isn't 2005. You can't live on little. Every once in a while, you can talk.
You just look at what he's had in Chicago. It's no
but
wonder
you
he
have to expand.
struggled.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying, like, for example, in Vegas, if you go to Vegas, right? Okay, fine. You got the obvious guy there, Devontae Adams there, so he's not going anywhere. But where else is you going? And Josh Jacobs might leave as well. So you're going to have a lack of a run game because you're not going to have Josh Jacobs unless you were to bring in Saquon after, which you're not going to do. If you're not willing to pay Josh, you're not going to pay Saquon.
No, you're going to draft somebody.
You're going to draft somebody or pick up some other guy from somewhere to squeeze in and fill the role until they find something better. So my thing is, no matter where he goes in all of these scenarios, it doesn't fit. I mean, like Justin Fields, for example, doesn't fit Atlanta's play style very well because, again, not a lot of weapons out there either. From a receiver standpoint, there's not a lot of weapons in Atlanta.
There could be.
There's a heck of a one.
Kyle Pitts, if he's used correctly. They got Drake London, Bijan Robinson.
But the truth is, his best bet would just be stay in Chicago and have Chicago take Marvin Harrison at one. But again, I don't think Caleb Williams is the answer either. We talked about this on the show a little bit last week too. Shane's a big college guy. I'm not sold on him. I'm not sold on Drake. I'm not sold on May either. I'm not a big fan of the ACC competition. I don't think there's a lot of competition there. How many times have we seen a quarterback go to a small school, look phenomenal? I mean, unstoppable. Come to the pros and was absolutely fucking horrible. It happens all the time.
We've seen it a lot recently.
Watch my language there. Sorry, I don't usually drop F-bombs on the show. I'm a little rusty here. But
I mean, look, like Malik Willis, who looked like a can't miss prospect in the combine, comes to Titans and
comes out of Liberty though. He comes out of Liberty. I mean, if you look at their schedule, who did they play? Did they play Bama? I don't think so. Did they play Tennessee? Did they play Tennessee or Bama or Georgia or TCU? No, they played like Florida Gulf Coast University and Toledo and like. Dude, there's no real talent there. So,
and if you look at like the history of North Carolina quarterbacks that have came out recently, Mitch Trubisky failed. Sam Howell in Washington. Yeah, he had like a good first half of the season last year. Fell off tremendously.
He had good numbers, but it didn't win anything. I mean, the problem is like wins and losses still matter in the NFL. I'd rather you throw 12 picks, 12 touchdowns for 2,500 yards and win 14 games. I don't care. I don't care what your stats look like. I care about what my win-loss record is. So for Sam Howell, I said it early on. I was like, "Oh man, watch out! He's leading the league in passing." I'm like, "Yeah, but he still sucks. It doesn't matter." And I like the guy. I think he has a great arm talent, but he just doesn't have pocket awareness. His IQ's kind of dips every once in a while, and he makes really, really bad decisions with the ball every single week. But and then one of the other big rumors, like I said, probably about 20 minutes ago, was Saquon Barkley is aiming to try to get over to Houston, which I agree with what you said before the show a little bit. I think that's a great fit. I mean, huge upgrade over Devin Singletary if he can stay healthy.
Right, that's the big if. That's the big question mark. Is if Saquon can put 16 games in.
At least 13, at least 12 or 13. Maybe you sit him a couple to let him get his energy back, whatever. But
but the amount of money that he is going to possibly get, he needs to be available every single week.
I'd rather see them go after a guy like Josh Jacobs, honestly. I think he would fit that system way better than Saquon would. And yes, obviously Josh has had some injuries and stuff like that, but I still think it'd be a huge benefit.
Well, you got to think, Houston still has 2 first-round picks. This is the last year that they got Cleveland's first-round pick in the Deshaun Watson debacle trade. Obviously, we know who won that trade.
Is that the Herschel? Can we call that the Herschel Walker trade of the modern era?
It might be worse. It might be the worst trade of all time.
It might. Well, again, that's where Herschel Walker's trade always was for a long time because 3 of those 4 picks were Hall of Famers by the time it was said and done.
Right. But you get one of these high-profile running backs in there to go along with. I mean, they got to go offensive line because that's the biggest thing in this draft coming up. Is if you need offensive line help, this is the draft to get it. Yeah. And then add to that defense. I think Houston could be a very dangerous team if they can add a running back.
Yeah, I think Josh Jacobs would be my go-to if I was them. I think you're going to pay him more though because he knows he can stay healthy. Whatever Saquon gets, I feel like Josh is going to sit around and wait to see what Saquon gets. And he's like, okay, toss on 5 more a year, and then you got me because you want to beat up guy who's getting old. He is getting old. I keep forgetting how long he's been in the league for. I think that's part of aging. Is you're like, holy crap, that guy's already pushing 30. What the hell? I feel like Saquon got drafted like 2 years ago. I'm like, wait, it's been like 8 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
But, and that's the thing. Like, Tony Pollard's out there. I'm not sold on Tony Pollard. People were linking him to Philadelphia. That's never going to fly.
I think he showed last year he can't be that number one bell cow guy.
He needs somebody else to go off. I think having Zeke in there and disguising the run sometimes, I think it benefited Tony Pollard a lot. But and Tony Pollard mostly ran on like second and third downs, late in the drive, short, whatever. And he had the benefit of really getting a tired defensive line before he even came on the field for the first time. But hey, he finally found a way. Hey, what's up, Justin? Thanks for tuning in, man. Appreciate you. But yeah, I mean, that's another one of the big rumors. Now, I'm not sure if you saw as well. Devontae Adams is not going to be traded.
Yeah.
The GM there came out and said there is no version of this where he is traded. Do you think that he should get traded, or do you agree that they should keep him there?
Depends what they do at quarterback. You know what I mean? If they stick with Aiden McConnell, I mean, you got to get the poor kid some sort of weapon, somebody to throw the ball to. But if you're going to blow the whole thing up, I mean, you might as well trade him and get some sort of assets, draftable assets.
By not having Jacobs, it clears up a lot of cap space, obviously. I mean, there's going to be a lot more room there. I mean, there's also going to be some other guys on the defensive side of the ball I heard they're letting go of in free agency. So, I mean, there's a lot of room for them to make big impact, in Vegas. And again, they're one of those teams that I don't think is that far from being – I'm not saying they're going to be a championship team, and they're in a really hard conference as well, in a very hard division for that matter. But they're not far away from success. It's just like,
well, yeah,
you watch the games and it's like, oh, there was like these 4 plays, or like they would have had like 2 more guys, or even just 1 more guy. Like I think they would have really taken it over the edge, and they just always fell short. It was the strangest team to watch the last couple of years because they're so highly publicized, so highly talked about, and they always fall short.
I mean, the Raiders could be one of them teams to watch to trade up in the draft to get one of those quarterbacks.
Yeah, we talked about in the show. I think there's plenty of talent late in the first round of guys that are not being looked at the right way. Like they're saying Bo Nix might be a second, third round guy at this point. I mean, if you're the Raiders and you can snag him in the second or third round and not have to use one of your top draft picks, and you can go get a defensive player at corner, or grab another skill position player, whatever it is, and you're able to keep one of those second, third round picks and draft a guy to kind of mold him, that's a win. I mean, and I'm not saying Bo Nix is going to be a Hall of Fame player, but I do think he's 22, super young. And he is just as ready as the rest of these guys are. And half these other guys are 24, 25 years old. I'm sorry. I think he's worth a shot. And we saw the arm talent in Oregon last year. The one game threw, 6 touchdown passes for like crazy amount of yards. Right. The arm is there. Again, but he has 2 years to develop before he's even the same age as the rest of these guys are coming out. Right. But yeah, they're a team to watch out for, I think, for sure. Any other rumors that you saw that you really thought was pretty interesting?
No, I mean, there's a couple defensive tackles, like Christian Wilkins is going to be available. I think that could be a big pickup for somebody that needs some trench help. He's still pretty young, can get after the quarterback. For teams that don't need just a guy to plug the middle, but somebody that can pass a rusher. Chris Jones, we don't know what's going on with him in Kansas City, could be a big key guy. And then L'Jarius Sneed, the quarterback from the Chiefs, like they put the franchise tag on him, but they said, hey, go ahead and see if you can find a trade.
Well, he's been heavily recruited by Philadelphia players. He went to college with like 3 guys from the Eagles. And there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about, trying to bring him here. I don't really want him, to be honest. I know that for example, I think we have a sneaky good secondary for next year. There's a couple of guys that I'll talk about another week. There was a corner that was suspended for the entire year last year for gambling purposes, who was actually really good. They only cut him because of the gambling. But I think we have a pretty sneaky good. And the problem with L'Jarius Sneed is I think he had more pass interference calls than any other player in the NFL last year.
Pretty close, yeah.
And we don't need that. We really just don't need that. We had enough issues with penalties last year. I don't need another one.
Right.
And I'm not sure if you saw this or not, and I didn't hear the sound clip all the way yet. A.J. Brown, he calls into WIP Philadelphia. They were doing a thing where they were talking trash about A.J. Brown. Literally live on air, they're like, oh, he's a diva, and he wasn't even there for the team in the playoffs, and he doesn't want to be an Eagle anymore. And we heard the rumors all the end of the year, and I told you I thought a lot of it was BS, but then again, it got a little bit more traction and more traction. He calls in and tells them, you guys are literally a waste of time. I am not having a problem with the team. I am happy in Philadelphia. I'm not leaving Philadelphia. I was literally just revamping my Twitter page, which is why I took everything off of there which a lot of players do when they get new social media managers. He goes, I'm staying in Philadelphia, so cut it out and find some other stuff to talk about because I don't need to smoke and I don't really care for it. And he just like hung up the phone and just went away. It was great that he just called in as a regular person. He just called in like you were trying to call like a Pittsburgh radio show.
Right.
That's what he did. And he just got on. He was like, listen here. Do you think more players should do that, though? Like, do you think that's a good image? Like, it's a good idea to, like, go out in front of your fans and, like, even the media and say, hey, shut the hell up. I'm not going anywhere. Like, cut it out.
Well, I like it because that means he's honest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not just saying the right things to keep a job in the NFL. He's letting his emotions be heard. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's good, you know, in a positive way. Now,
what else is nice about it, too, is how often do we find out news from per their agent? You know, Tom Pelissero says per the agent of. It's like, well, and I've always said, like, these guys, I think, forget how much money we spend as fans to watch some of this stuff. Whether you have NFL Sunday ticket or season tickets, or even if you just go to one game. Like, one game is very, very expensive on the average team, unless you went to that Carolina game last year. But aside from that one Carolina game for like $5, most games are going to run you a couple $100 plus parking, plus if you want to eat and drink, you know, like there's a ton of stuff to do. You're buying the jerseys, you're buying the mugs, you're paying like the mugs are no different than a regular mug at Walmart, but you're going to pay $6 more on the internet because it has a logo stamped on the front of it.
You're right.
I mean, we pay a lot of money to be able to get involved, right? Like, I love the fact that players today are becoming a little bit more verbal. Like, I love the fact I love the fact that I can pop on. I don't really use Twitter unless like something notifies me, but I love the fact that like instead of just hearing rumors about, oh, this guy's fighting with this guy, it's like, you know what? Cam Hayward's fighting with, you know, Najee Harris or whatever. Okay, cool. I'm going to go watch this argument. And they're atting each other, then other NFL players get involved. Like, it's cool to see, though. Like, it's a little childish, don't get me wrong, but it's nice to be like, make you feel included in being able to see what's going on.
Yeah. See, I like it.
Money.
And I like that AJ wasn't a keyboard warrior with this. Like, he let his own voice be heard on airwaves.
He didn't tweet it like screw WIP for trashing me tonight.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah. Everybody can be a keyboard warrior.
Well, let's say, for example, he typed half of what he actually said. We'd be calling him a drama queen right now.
Right.
Oh, there he went. He was on Twitter, trashing a local radio. And all it would have did, it would have sparked more rumors. Right. Oh, now AJ's even trashing the radio shows in Philadelphia, calling them. Like, they would have found some way to turn that angle and make it even more legit. Yeah. So I think the way that he did it was perfect. Don't go through.
I do too.
Stop going through Adam Schefter. Stop going through your agent. Stop letting some other player speak for you. Like, whatever's like, he showed up. He said what he had to say. And he was like, screw you guys. I love this team. I'm staying with this team. Right. Find something else to talk about because this is not legit. I loved it. And it makes me feel better as a fan.
And not just that. Like, you have to feel good about being this guy's teammate. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's all in. Like, he went on, he bet on himself, used his own voice to voice his opinion. Well, you know what I mean? And
speaking of NFL players having opinions, there was one thing that I know that I got a message from Freight Train like 45 minutes ago, and he's like, you have to add this to the show. I'm tired of hearing about this. I want to talk about it. So here it is. Freight Train and I, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. We probably talked about it too much before the show, but we're going to try to keep it fresh. Yeah. But player surveys, what are your thoughts, Freight Train? What are your thoughts on that?
Now, I'm not saying the whole thing is garbage. You know, like, there's a lot of things that needed to come out that came out, like, you know, with the families and, you know, the facilities, this and that. But when players are grading if they're getting 3 meals a day is a little bit obsessive. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are millionaires. Like, you make more than the average person in one game than we make in like 15 years. Like, you have an opportunity of a lifetime, and this is what you're grading, and you're crying over spilled milk and making it public. You know what I mean? Like, you make millions of dollars. You are a millionaire. You can go out and get your own damn food. Like, you get free Gatorade. I got to go to a gas station and pay $5 for that thing. Like, these players don't understand that, like, you should be on your knees thanking God every single day for the opportunity that you have. The rest of us have regular 9-to-5s. You make $1 million to play a football game.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I was reading some of the things I was telling you about, a couple of them before the show started. One of them being that there was a team, I think the Bengals it was. Yeah, the Bengals last year were called out for not offering 3 meals a day. Now they offer.
Get out of here! Like you can't stop at Chick-fil-A on your way to the stadium. Like
now they offer 3 meals a day, but only on Wednesdays. Only on Wednesdays they give 3 meals per day. I thought the other funny one was Arizona was talking about how. And I will say this one I understand a little bit because they are away from their families. There should be at least 1 free meal a day or like.
I know, but these guys signed up for this. You signed a contract.
I know.
You signed a contract, abiding rights to this football game.
We're making you billions of dollars. I get where you're coming from. Like from the owner philosophy, you signed a contract, we pay you a ton of money.
Yeah.
From the player's philosophy, you pay us a percentage of the money that you make. You make billions. We make millions. It's a lot of money. But the M and the B are a little bit different. I think we can agree on.
Yeah.
And if you're a player, though, it's, hey, you're making money on my jerseys. You're making money on the cups. You're making money on the playoffs. You're making money.
Then when you get out, when you retire, get into NFL ownership.
But I'm saying at least 1 meal would be like, I would say at least 1 per day. Like if you're if you're coming in for practice for the day, maybe after practice, like even just having something, I'm not saying it has to be exquisite, like a 5-star meal. Maybe a little bit of something to snack on or something like that on your way home.
Right. Like they have to understand these NFL owners own football teams, not soup kitchens.
Yeah. No, I know.
Like,
I agree. But so I think by far, from what I looked at, Washington had by far the worst ratings, which does not surprise anybody. The Broncos have a car theft problem. Apparently, multiple vehicles have been stolen since they've moved to Vegas. The Raiders players basically stated that they could not stand Josh McDaniels and were way happier after he left. But here's the F minuses in the NFLPA survey. The Bengals, Steelers, Patriots, and Commanders all gave an F minus to their team for treatment of families, which your Steelers unfortunately fell in that category.
It's crazy to think.
But I have heard that Art Rooney was rated the worst owner, one of the worst owners in the National
Football. He got an F. Yeah, he got an F. Mm-hmm.
I know Dan Snyder's gone now, but I think he's right there now where Dan Snyder left.
Well, and I know, like, just as well as I do, there's things that happen behind closed doors that the average person doesn't see. You know what I mean?
The Bengals have some problems, though, because not only were they an F minus for treatment of family, they were also an F minus for the food quality and the cafeteria.
What is an F minus? Like, what is a grade that's an F minus? Like, that's just an F.
F means you failed. F minus means like you should have never even tried. Like that's like F minus is not only did you fail, but why even attempt it? Right. You knew you were going to fail.
How is that an option?
Well, I'm just saying F minus. I mean, I guess it's like a -1 out of 10. But so they got an F for treatment of family, F for food cafeteria, and an F minus for nutrition and dietitian, which is actually really bad. I mean, that one I will say is super important to keep the players up to par. You got to have those proper trainers and physicians on staff.
But doesn't the NFL set guidelines for these teams that they need to be following for this? Like, when does the NFL step in and be like, "This is the base. Like, this is what I would do."
I would say the NFL has to come out and say, "This is what the base limit is." Like every team. Listen, we're having way too many issues with these surveys. Here's what's going to happen: the bare minimum. You have to give at least 1 meal for every practice day that you have, right? And then the other rule is, you have to keep your dietitian staff and whatever staff up to a certain point. You have to have at least this many vitamins on staff, whatever. If you're giving vitamins out, like you have to have X amount of those on site at all times. Right. If you fail to do so and we're made aware of it, there will be a lawsuit of X amount of dollars. Like that's what it should be. Now, for the teams that want to go above and beyond, keep going above and beyond. That's fine. Nobody's saying you have to go to the base.
Right.
There has to be a lower level set because it's obvious that the teams, and we talked about it, a lot of the teams that are performing bad recently are the teams that are rated pretty poorly. Now, Cincinnati has some injury problems, but overall, Washington Commanders, there's a couple other teams. Like Jacksonville was a bottom dweller for a long time. Arizona's a bottom dweller right now. They've had a lot of D's and F's as well. There's a lot of crazy stuff that the Chiefs got ownership problems, apparently.
Yeah. But they're winning Super Bowls.
You know what I'm wondering now? I'm wondering if it's a pay issue or, like for example, if you do realize one thing, they do go through a pretty high turnover rate of players. Like they'll bring in those guys for a year, whatever, bring them in for 2 and they cut them early or they trade them or whatever. Like Kansas City is known for rotating guys in and out rapidly. And there are a lot of players that leave KC and go, you don't want to go there. You really don't want to go.
Right.
But it's going to hurt them over the long run because I've been saying this for a couple of years now. Once this team starts to have some age issues and like guys like Travis start leaving, whatever it is, I know Mahomes is good, but I don't think Mahomes will be able to carry a bad defense and bad offense. If they keep getting bad reviews like this, a lot of players are not going to want to go there.
Right.
Free agency is going to be a nightmare for Kansas City.
But at the end of the day, like these players need to understand, like this is a business. Like, at the end of the day, the owner is about making money. It's just like any other business. Okay. Everybody that owns a business cuts corners in different angles to make themselves more money. It's not all about you. You know what I mean? Like these players want to be pampered and like acted like they are something that should be worshipped upon by these owners. No, that's not how this works.
Well, outside of Andy Reid as a coach, and we can finish up with this just because they won the Super Bowl last year, so it's pretty fascinating for the Chiefs. And we'll move on to the next topic here. But as of the survey, okay, treatment of families in Kansas City, and Peyton J. Haverman, one of the big NFL guys, said exactly, Chiefs players literally hate everything about the organization that's not Andy Reid. And they still won back-to-back Super Bowls. And then it says here, so treatment of families, D+. It was ranked 18th out of 32 teams based on the player surveys. Food cafeteria, C-, ranked 26 out of 32. Nutritionist and dietitian, 31st. It was an F. It's the second worst team rating-wise. Locker room, F, 28th. Training room, a D, 31st. And training staff was an F, and it ranked dead last in the entire National Football League. Now, I have to ask, though, before we walk off of this, do you ever think that some of this is purposely done by the players to be like, holy shit, things are so bad, but they're still winning? Because, again,
right?
Like me and you can be like, yo, dude, we're going to make this team look so much better.
And like,
we're going to say, you know what, the organization has nothing to do with our success at all. You don't make us look that much better, so when we go somewhere else, we're like, oh my God, even with how bad that whole organization was, you were still like me and you were whispering about it. Then we tell, Chris Elliott, yo, come here. Hey, Bubba, come here. Hey, Shane, come here. Listen, everybody vote F or at least a D-.
Right.
Listen, we got to trash this. We got to do this. Whatever. It's gonna make us look so much better. Trust me. And not with that, but like if you notice, the one thing that I read was a lot of these teams that were getting bad reviews last year ended up changing everything like a 180. For example, the no 3 meals a day. Well, now they offer it once a week, 3 meals a day. Like a lot of teams read these and were like, holy crap, we're being trashed on social media. And they went ahead and fixed it.
Yeah. So, the only thing that I like these players have to understand, like I understand like some of these stadiums and everything are not where they could be. You know what I mean? Like they are outdated.
Can we blow up Soldier
Field yet? But it's like it's not that easy to just go in and remodel it to make it look like something. Like
it takes time.
Okay, you won't be able to use it until halfway through next season because it's still going to be
usually it's a full season. They don't even worry about bringing it back halfway through.
Like, we can't just go build one. We are in the middle of, let's say, Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. Yep. We have no lot. We have nowhere to put a new facility. Like it takes there's a process to it to eventually get there.
Agreed. Now, so obviously we talked about some changes that need to be made in organizations with that topic, and I'm glad you brought that up. I actually didn't get a chance to really look into it too much, and then once you texted me at like 7:15, I went and looked a little bit further into it. I was like, holy crap, I didn't know this was a thing. I just don't complain enough to read other people's complaints. I just don't do it. And let's see. So rule changes. Now, this one was interesting when I was looking through this. So the two major penalties that they're talking about right now, and they're talking about some other things that they always do. There's always 15 things up for debate, like the push, the tush push and all that, which they haven't mentioned at all recently. So we'll see what happens there. But hip tackles going to start being penalized potentially, and intentional grounding. Now, when I say that, they don't mean more intentional grounding. They want less. So they're going to start allowing quarterbacks to get away with a lot more, which be ready for it. If you're a team that gets a lot of sacks or has a defensive lineman,
way down.
Sacks, those numbers are going to tank because what the NFL is trying to do is take care of quarterbacks and allow them more room to get rid of the ball rather than less. Now, I thought when I first read it, intentional grounding rules were going to change. I thought it was going to say, the NFL is going to be more strict on quarterbacks for trying to like force them into the ground all the time. And like they're halfway to the ground, they're chucking them 20 yards downfield out of bounds. I was like, oh, that's probably what that's about. That's why I opened it. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good to know. We're going to finally stop the Mahomes trick, right? Because he does it more than anybody does. He does it far more than anybody does. And I would say Josh Allen's probably up there as well. But last year, there was 59 intentional grounding penalties in total in the National Football League over 17 games. They want to get that number down to 24 by the end of next year. They want to drop that by 35 calls, more than 50% less.
That's a lot.
What they're talking about is there is no more inside the box. They're going to remove the whole box thing. We're going to have to be outside the box and get the ball to a certain point. It is going to get to the point where they can be anywhere in the pocket, in the box, whatever they want to do, and they are able to throw the ball away. Now, I'm not sure. They might even, from what I've heard, they might even change it from it has to get to the past the line of scrimmage to it just has to make it out of bounds or something like that. So
I see that. I don't see how this can pass because
the quarterback is going to throw it to the ground every time. They're just going to throw it straight down.
Well, and you got to think the amount of turnovers is going to decrease as well because they're not going to be forced into bad throws. They're just going to throw it away. There has to be some sort of it's within a certain amount of yardage from an eligible receiver. Like you can't just chug it anywhere. Like
I agree, but like from what I've been reading, like, in order to drop it 35, though, to drop it from 59 to a 24 or 25 or whatever it is, there has to be an extreme change. Okay, it's not like I see if they said we want to get to like 45 next year. I would say, okay, they're just gonna get rid of the tackle box and they're gonna keep everything else. So it has to make it to the line of scrimmage, whatever it is. But to want to cut it by more than half, there's no way that just removing the tackle box is gonna save you half. So that means they have to be making multiple changes to this rule if they really want to decrease those penalties by 50, 60%.
I just don't understand how these rule changes are benefiting the NFL.
Because
they're benefiting the actual game of football.
Here's how it benefits the NFL. Here's how it benefits the NFL. Now, obviously, if TJ Watt gets hurt, it sucks not having him, right? Obviously, if Myles Garrett gets hurt in Cleveland, it sucks not having him, right? However, let's say that a Buffalo team without Josh Allen or a Kansas City team without Patrick Mahomes or last year Minnesota without Kirk Cousins. Do you know what happened in all those what happened? The views would drop rapidly. Like you miss a defensive lineman, it's going to suck. Ignore my dogs in the background. It's going to suck, but it's not going to kill your ratings. But losing that marquee QB that everybody tunes in to watch, that will hurt the ratings. So in their mind, I read it, the whole purpose of the rule change is to protect the quarterback. That is the whole purpose. That's why both the biggest rule changes right now, that and the hip tackle, both of them, think about it, hurt quarterbacks last year. Mostly quarterbacks. And intentional groundings, those penalties are being called because now you're telling quarterbacks they can't stay safe. So all it's about is keeping the quarterback upright. That's all it's about. That's it. It's monetary. It's to keep the quarterback healthy so people keep watching the games. Because if Mahomes goes out for a full year, Kansas City's viewership is going to drop by like 85%. But so then also the other rule is the hip tackle. Last year, and this was a report that was done by a medical professional in the National Football League, there is a 25 times higher likelihood that a player will get hurt from a hip tackle than any other tackle in the National Football League. I find it to be a little bit BS. They used to say the same thing about the horse collar. The horse collar tackle became penalized in 2006. So it's been about 18 years now since they penalized that. They used to say the same thing. Oh, it makes you 50 times more likely to get hurt. Well, they're saying this is 25 times more likely to get hurt than any other tackle in the National Football League. I hate this for one reason. At what point are we going to stop playing defense?
Well, that's what I mean. How are these guys supposed to tackle?
Because you can't tackle. You can't tackle above the waist. You can't tackle below the knees. You can't take more than 2 steps before hitting the quarterback. You can't go with your helmet, but you can't go too low either. And like the wide receiver can grab you and shove you off of him, but you can't grab the wide receiver or it's a pass interference. Or hey, the quarterback can purposely underthrow the football to get a PI call against you, but it's your fault because you ran into him from behind, even though the quarterback did it on purpose. And you can't do this because that's this. There's always something that they do to the defense. Like, jumping over the line to block a field goal used to be a thing. They got rid of that. Can't do that no more. Like, it's always anti-defense. All the NFL wants is high points and high scores, and that's why I told you this before. From here on out for the last 10 years, I've been saying this for 10 years now, I do not believe in any record being broken anymore. I don't think that any of them should count. I think there should be an old record book that we idolize and say, you know what, that was impressive. And then we have to look at it and go, okay, when did the rules change the most? Okay, so we're going to have a pre-2000s record book, and we're going to have a post-2000s record book. Because I'm sorry, these wide receivers today have all the time in the world. They, you can't press anymore for too long or it's a penalty. You can't, you can't run pick plays anymore. You can't do this. Like at this point, if it's an offensive stat, it doesn't count. Now, if you're a defensive lineman and you lead the league in sacks and you break the sack record, I'll count that one. That's fucking counted. But this is insane. Like, how do you tackle?
Yeah, you're gonna start seeing quarterbacks like we used to think 5,000 yards. If you pass for 5,000 yards, like you killed it.
That was a rarity. But now the average player gets close. Sam Howell was on pace for that.
They're trending towards 6,000 yards. And then we're going to start seeing 2,000-yard rushers too, just because
I think within the next 5 to 7 years, most of the modern single-season records are going to be broken. I mean, by far. Like, first of all, they get an extra game over top of the 16-game records. Not to mention some of the records that were set. Like, for example, the rushing record by Earl Campbell in the 1980s, there was only 13 games at that time. So now you got 4 more games, which is an extra 80 carries, 90 carries, whatever you want to call it. And then on top of that, you got all these rules that say that they can't do nothing to you. So you can just run right through them. So, I mean, like, for example, how do you tackle a big running back? You tackle low. You go low.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Well, the problem is when you're doing that, you're diving a lot of the time. And half the time, these running backs go low with you. Well, helmet to helmet, boom, 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
It's like, what was I was doing the right thing. He lowered his helmet and met line, and I'm penalized. So now players like, I get that the Josh Norman stiff arm from Derrick Henry was hilarious and all that, but if you think about it, he had no other choice.
Well, even the players are confused. It's just like I keep looking back. Everybody says it's a dirty play. It wasn't a dirty play, but when Minkah Fitzpatrick took Nick Chubb's knee out, the only way to take Nick Chubb down is to go low. Chubb stayed up high, and Minkah hit him right in his knee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's just. Adding these rules is increasing injuries. Like I feel like they don't see that because the players don't understand it.
If you remember watching it, like when defensive players were trying to stop hitting the quarterback so hard, we were getting torn ACLs because they were running full speed and they were trying to stop on a dime. There was the one guy, I think it was a Colt, if I remember right, and he stopped, so he tried to like go around the QB, and as he spun, he tore his ACLs out for the rest of the year.
Right.
And he never came back the same after that. So, like, you're not – fine. You're protecting –
Why can't we look at, like, things like, knee injuries and leg injuries and lower body injuries are starting to be a thing. Like, is it the playing surface? Like, do we need to go back to just regular grass? We're not looking at that. We're looking at how guys are tackling quarterback.
Why is it always against the defense? Like, for example – I mean, I can sit here and make an argument that a pancake block is not safe a lot of the time. You're taking a big man and you're drilling him backwards and slamming him on his head and you're drilling him into the ground.
Right.
Sometimes they're 300-pound guys. And you're drilling them backwards. They can turn their ankles. They can bust their knees. They can hit their back. They can break their spine. Pancake blocks are fine. Why? Because they love the highlight of them. It's like, it's funny. There's so many things I look at from an offensive perspective. Like, for example, running backs can put their hand on your face mask and sometimes even get a little grab on there and keep running. Nobody ever calls it. Defensively, even if you touch that face mask, it's a face mask. Like, offense, do whatever you want. Defense, figure it out. Like, good luck to you. It's just, it's so sad. And that's why I give these lockdown corners of today's NFL,
they have the hardest job in the NFL.
By far.
Cornerbacks, hardest job in the NFL.
By far.
There's no.
It used to be, I would say early 2000s when the quarterback started to become a lot more used. I said the quarterback spot was the hardest in the early 2000s because they were in this weird era where you run the ball, but now you're going to pass the ball more. And a lot of these guys played college ball where it was all running, and they were forced to come in and throw for 3,000 yards. But now it's so easy to throw the ball. I'm not going to lie to you. You could probably make somebody's practice squad. So could I. I'm out of shape.
Guaranteed.
I can't throw that far, but either can Mitch. Either can.
I'm definitely better than Mitch.
Kenny Pickett's not throwing very far either. So I mean,
you put a headband on me, you'll forget who Zach Wilson is.
Yeah, Robbie Gardner Minshew 2.0, baby. Come on, man. And then the last thing, I think this one's more of I mean, apparently they've been talking about this for a couple of years now. I don't like it because I think it kind of plays too much into the whole rigged phenomenon, the electronic yard markers. I'll tell you what, referees do suck and referees can change the game. But is it any different than some guy up in a booth pushing whatever button he wants and like changing the line of scrimmage whenever he feels like it? It wasn't offsides. Look, see? Oh, wait a minute. That's not where that line was before. We're going to see a million YouTube videos of, what they saw versus what it was. I'm like, look, the referees changed the line of scrimmage from the press box. Like, it ain't going to make it any better.
No.
I mean, it's going to get worse. It's going to make it even more of a suspicious thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like that either. I don't like electronic yard markers either.
Nope.
I mean, baseball thought about getting rid of umpires for behind the plate to get perfect pitch tracking. They changed their minds. They're like, you know what?
But at the end of the day, though, you're changing like the integrity of the game, like what it is about. You know what I mean? Like there's some things that you just can't change because it's just a part of the original game.
Well, it's integrity, and this is something that we talked about before as well. The NFL Combine. This used to be a big deal.
Yeah, not so much.
Everybody's talking about the 40-yard dash and the throwing and the route running and the weightlifting. It's a joke now. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think it's a joke?
Honestly, dude, I don't even really watch it anymore, to be honest with you. Like, it's become some sort of, like, a joke, like you said, and, like, high-profile guys aren't even participating. You're talking about top 10, top 5, top 3 picks aren't even showcasing themselves in this event. Like, what is the reason to watch when you're not watching the high-profile guys? Like, Caleb Williams isn't playing. Marvin Harrison isn't going out and catching passes. Like,
now, for anybody in the comment section, please do let us know what your thoughts are. Do you watch the Combine? Do you not watch the Combine? And do you think it's even worth watching anymore?
It's so watered down now.
I don't think it is either. I don't think it's even worth watching either because, again, like you said, all the marquee players that we want to see how they're going to look before we draft. Like, if you're a Bears fan and you got the number 1 pick in the draft, you want to see everybody. You're like, I want to see.
So for like Caleb Williams, like, did he tag on some muscle? Does he look different? Like, and at the end of the day, Rich, at the end of the day, the NFL Combine, it doesn't really tell you that much because these guys aren't out there with pads and a helmet on. You're in shorts and a t-shirt.
They're not getting hit. They're not getting hit. There's no pressure. No. There's a little bit of pressure, but not really because nobody cares.
I want to see what your 40 time is with a full uniform on.
Well, I love those stats. That's why I love the fastest play, like the fastest run from scrimmage during the NFL year. I love when they show you that kind of stuff because that's legit. That's with defenders on the field and you're taking off.
I mean, anymore, this has just become like guys that are going to get drafted later on in the draft to show what they have. You know what I mean? Like guys that aren't going to be in the first day, maybe possibly not even the second day, to come in here and try to make a name for themselves. That's all this is. I mean, the Combine makes guys like Malik Willis look like a franchise quarterback. Come on.
Well, they did the same thing with what's his name now, the backup in Dallas. It's what's his name? Backup former Niners quarterback. I can't think of what his name is.
Right. Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. He looked like a superhero in the Combine, and even before that.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett looked like Joe Montana.
I don't know about that. I mean, I'll tell you what. The closest successful quarterback comparison I'll give you is like Trent Dilfer. How about that?
I don't even know if he's that good.
By the way, Trent Dilfer was really good in college, by the way. But yeah, I mean, we can rush off of this topic because there's not much to say. I mean,
and you see it like
if you like watching 340-pound men do 40s, this is the time to watch it because those are the guys that are out there.
And I'll end it on.
If you want to see offensive lineman run a 6'7" 40, now's the time to do it.
And I'll even end it with this, Rich. Like these top guys, we haven't even seen play because some of them don't even play in their bowl games because they're going to the NFL. We haven't seen them play since late October.
Well, and they didn't even play the real good talent in the college football playoff for some of these teams. I mean, some of these guys didn't even play in those playoff games. So all we saw is, and they do it on purpose. I mean, they definitely do it on purpose. And I get the injury aspect, but I think a lot more of it is, what if we go out there against a high caliber team and we don't produce? What does that do to me in the draft? And for anybody watching, that is the truth. And agents have came on ESPN and talked about it. We are talking the difference between the number 1 pick in the draft and the number 10 pick in the draft is like sometimes like 15, 20, $25 million. We're talking a lot of money just by having a poor showing. For example, Caleb Williams comes out and runs a 5.5 40. But I'm like, wait a minute. We wanted this guy because he was versatile. What do you mean he's running a 5.5 40? What the hell? He looked faster when I watched him on TV. Yeah. Whatever. Or, if God forbid Marvin Harrison goes out there and all of a sudden they come to find out, oh, wait, he ran the same 4 routes in college. I'm not saying he did, but he ran the same 4 routes. We asked him to run a short drag and he stumbled and he had a hard time picking up the 10-yard slant route, whatever it is.
Well, and then on top of that, you're going to see a lot more NFL draft busts.
Yeah.
If these teams can't correctly evaluate the talent that they're picking.
I think the only way the NFL is going to make their revenue back by streaming this. We talked about this before the show too, which is it's probably the most understreamed event of the year. Like nobody really watches it. I think for them, there's going to have to be a rule out there where like these guys have to participate in at least one event, or have to like, at least participate in partial events or whatever it is. But as far as the combine goes, I'll watch it. But I like Penn State. I like Pitt. So when I know one of the guys I've been following for
I want the Steelers to get their outside linebacker or defensive end. I can't remember his name. Help me out, Patton.
What school? Pittsburgh or Penn State?
He went to Penn State.
Is that Fashion New? Or that's a tackle? That's a tackle.
No, he's an outside.
I forget
he
he
translates to outside linebacker probably in the NFL, but he could be a defensive end.
I want Jeremiah Trotter Jr. You can have the other guy. I don't care.
Pittsburgh had an interview with him, by the way.
Oh, really? I love Jeremiah Trotter Jr. He's awesome. Mm-hmm. Out of Clemson, and his dad was an Eagle for a while. One of my favorite Eagles growing up, by the way, Jeremiah Trotter. Now this one's a little bit more. This topic we're going to get into here is a little bit more different. So Colin Cowherd came out with a video, and I looked into it. It is true, by the way. I was just looking at it before the show started. On average, there are 6 new playoff teams every single year, which is pretty crazy to think about, by the way. That's pretty impressive when you think about how 32 teams.
Thanks, Chris Elliott. Chris answered it for me.
So 6 SWAT teams every year is the average. So me and Freight Train decided we were going to try to come up with 6 teams who we could see taking a spot from somebody else. Now, we're not going to get into the whole details of what team they're going to bump down and what's the breakdown. We're not going to get into all that. However, we are going to give you guys our prediction on 6 teams that might make the playoffs this year that did not make it last year. Now, Freight Train, we'll go one by one here. So, who is your number one team you think is definitely going to make the playoffs this year that did not make it last year?
The New York Jets. I think that defense is way too good. The only thing they were missing last year was consistent quarterback play. And Aaron Rodgers is going to come back now. It was only an Achilles tear, so it didn't do anything to his arm. Yep. Maybe a year off from football actually prolonged his career, made him better. Yeah. But that talent on the offense with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson on the outside, and they could only add more talent to that. The offensive line wasn't atrocious.
Don't forget the run game. But the run game has been spectacular too. I mean, and like we talked about at the beginning of the show, they went 7-10 last year.
Yeah, that could get flipped with good quarterback play very easily.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing.
And how many of those losses were by less than a touchdown? That's the other thing.
Well, and here's the crazy thing, right? So last year they went 7-10. They obviously didn't have Rodgers. Now, Rodgers is going to be back healthy this year. We're hoping, right? I would love to see that, especially for my father-in-law, who's a big Jets fan, and my fiance, who's a Jets fan. But what's funny is they have the 10th pick in this draft. They have a top 10 draft pick, and they have Aaron Rodgers coming back, and they have stud receivers over there. The tight end's pretty good. The running game is good. The O-line's getting better. They are missing a tackle.
I'm actually looking for them to actually be in the mix to draft Brock Bowers.
I wouldn't be surprised by Bowers pick up, but I'm also looking at the draft order for NFL draft right now. They're saying the Jets' biggest need is an offensive tackle. I believe it's a right tackle or left. I can't remember which one, if it's a right or a left. But they're saying tackle is a big issue. Wide receiver, safety, DT, and quarterback. Now, obviously, quarterback is a long-term thing they have to focus on because Rodgers only has.
Yeah, but you got to be in win now mode. You got to know your needs.
With a guy like Rodgers, when you pay Rodgers that kind of money, you have to be in win now mode. You got to at least get one chip out of this.
Right.
I think I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think Joe Alt's going to be there. I think Joe Alt's going to be going top 5 out of Notre Dame. I think Fashanu, if Fashanu is still available at 10, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jets go get him. If he's not, I wouldn't be surprised because what's the one thing Rodgers always wanted in Green Bay? He wanted position players. Well, just receivers or anybody. And in his time in Green Bay, they only ever drafted one wide receiver in the first round, and that was his very last year there.
And he was bottom of the first round.
I wouldn't be surprised if they go for a skill position player there in the first round.
Honestly, no, dude. They didn't even take a first round. He was second round. Christian Watson was second round, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but I think there was a first round guy the year before. I don't know. I thought there was one. But either way, the one year he was pissed off when they drafted Jordan Love.
Right. Yeah.
But so we got the Jets number 1. So the Jets. So in our minds right now, the Jets make the playoffs. So the next team on your list, I'll give you mine. My next one is an AFC team as well. I have the Cincinnati Bengals making the playoffs this year. Obviously, had a really bad year last year, but Poor Joe Mixon was running the ball to save his life, and they had no quarterback play. So for me, I think with Joe Burrow coming back healthy, they franchise tagged Boyd, I believe. They're going to have some weapons
T. Higgins.
there. T.
Higgins. Yep.
But they franchise tagged him. They're going to keep all the guys they already have. Defense is getting a little bit better every year, it feels like. I think Cincinnati comes back and either wins the division or it's going to be a pretty close battle with Baltimore.
They got a couple like DJ Reader, who is a defensive.
DJ Reader's good.
Yeah, he's a free agent. So
middle linebacker guy too. The middle linebacker is Wilson.
Luke Wilson.
I like that kid a lot. He was a beast last year too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like him too.
So who's your second team?
My second team. I'm going to go Minnesota Vikings on this one.
Minnesota, okay.
I like what they did defensively last year. If they can keep Danielle Hunter for their outside pass rusher, they got to pay the man.
He's a free agent as of right now.
Yeah, they got to pay him. If they can bring back Kirk and run it again with a healthy Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the outside, and maybe go try to find maybe one of these running backs, because Madison isn't the answer there. I know Chandler came in there towards the end of the year and played pretty well, but they need a high-profile running back there to help them out and get a little bit better in the trenches, and I think they could really make some noise. Yeah.
And that's funny because that's one of my NFC teams. So I actually have 4 AFC teams making the change to NFC, and Minnesota is one of mine as well. And I'm not sure if you saw that today, though, where they talked about nowhere on this planet or any other planet or any universe is Justin Jefferson being traded. He was asked in a press conference if Justin Jefferson was up for a trade. He said, not on this planet, not on another planet, not in the universe.
Yeah.
There's nowhere on the face of the universe that he is being traded. But I agree. And we talked about that all year. The run game was just so bad. Kirk Cousins only played 8 games. They played extremely well when he did play, by the way. And as much as you want to bash the guy, people love to hate Kirk Cousins. But if you were to put a blindfold on and look down and only see the numbers and not see who it is, you'd be like, oh, my God, that guy's incredible. He's making, what, $50 million a year? Yeah. Now, take your blindfold, Kirk Cousins sucks. Well, you just saw it for yourself. He doesn't suck.
Yeah. No, he doesn't.
He does struggle in prime time. He does have a hard time with, like, Monday Night Football, whatever. But when he's on the field, you can't tell me that Minnesota's not better off.
100%.
And I don't know who you're drafting. I really don't know who you're going to draft here to make up for that, because at least with Kirk Cousins, you get one thing that you know, and that is he does have an arm. He's won you games, and he's actually picked number 11. I mean, Minnesota has the 11th pick in this draft. So right after our last pick, the Jets, they're actually right there at number 11. But, yeah, I think Minnesota's going to take over there. I think Jordan Love's going to fall back a little bit this year. I think Green Bay's getting a little weak in some spots. That makes me nervous. I know they got lucky this year with Christian Watson out there, but, like, really, they just don't have
defense. That defense is getting kind of suspect.
It's aging. The running game's solid, obviously, but
Aaron Jones is kind of on that last legs here.
But even with that being said, the problem I have with Green Bay is I just don't see there being enough there to be consistent yet. And I think they benefited a lot from Minnesota having a little bit of a down year because of injuries. Like, for example, if Minnesota and Green Bay go head-to-head, they probably split last year. That's one more loss on Green Bay. That goes 9-8 and whatever. It gets – then all of a sudden they're only off by a game. Minnesota was still on the bubble, week 15, week 16. They didn't get eliminated from playoffs until, like, week 15. So
now, mind you, everybody, some of these teams we're picking as wild card teams. Like Detroit, obviously, I think is going to win that division.
We are. These are just 6 changes in the playoffs in general. It can be wild card or divisional. Doesn't matter. But, yeah, by no means are we saying these are the teams that are coming back to win their entire division.
Right.
These guys will just make a playoff appearance this year.
Yeah.
My next team, and I'll go back to the AFC since you took us over to the NFC for a second. Well, actually, we did do 2 AFC right away. So I'll tell you what I'll do my last NFC team. I have one more. And that is, I do have by the way, I do have an asterisk next to this because quarterback is what makes me nervous here. I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons over Tampa Bay.
I agree.
I think that is the safest bet. It's definitely not going to be Carolina. The Saints definitely ain't going to do it this year. And I don't believe in Tampa 100%. They're going to lose Mike Evans most likely. He's your 1,000-yard guy every single year. It's going to be really hard to replace a guy that can give you 1,000 yards and 5-6 TDs a year. That's going to hurt you. And I think with Baker Mayfield, he needs all the weapons he can get because he is very mistake prone.
Yep.
And you need guys like him that can go up and grab the ball and remove some of those mistakes. Because I'm sorry, I watched a few different balls last year that Baker threw that were saved by the bell quite a few times between Godwin and him. So I'm going to say Tampa Bay does not make the playoffs next year, but Atlanta will win the division. They will go on as a divisional round. They're not going to go. I don't think they're going to go very far, but I have Atlanta. What do you got there? Who's your next team?
I'm going to go back to the AFC. I think we also probably agree with this one is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yep.
I think there's too much talent on that offensive side of the ball for them to not be
Even
an
defense,
offensive.
yeah.
Defense gave up too many big plays last year. They were too inconsistent. That offense, Justin Herbert lost pretty much damn near everybody. Austin Eckler wasn't himself, and then Herbert got the thumb injury.
Yep.
I still say that Justin Herbert's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. I really do.
I agree.
So
that's why he's on my list. I mean, that's why these guys are on my list. I mean, if you think about a lot of these teams that we're talking about, it's because of quarterbacks, right? I mean, like, for example, the reason why we both have an asterisk next to Atlanta when we talked about him earlier is quarterback, right? Well, you think about Minnesota. Kirk Cousins, if he goes back, that's why we have him on that list. The Chargers, Herbert, that's why he's on that list. We talked about Rodgers. That's why they're on the list. If the Jets had any quarterback in New York, we would not have the Jets on this list without Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And then the Bengals without Burrow, we wouldn't have them on the list either. Browning did okay when he stepped in, but he's not Joe Burrow. So, I think it's safe to say like quarterback play is a big part of it. So I agree. I actually have Herbert on my list as well with the LA Chargers. Obviously, they're not going to win the division. I think KC's going to win the division again. But I do think that they're going to have a high enough record in the number 2 spot in the West to be able to clinch a playoff spot.
I will say about that division is actually very, very competitive against each other. Like you saw the Denver Broncos, who were an absolute mess, beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
The Raiders are kind of up and coming. Yep. They also gave the Chiefs a run for their money.
Yep.
The Chargers, they stayed in the game, but obviously they lost just so much to injury. They couldn't just really.
I'll tell you what. I think a big loss this year was Mike Williams early on. He was on my fantasy team, and he was killing it. I mean, when Keenan Allen's not there, Mike Williams is the guy. And then you have Eckler back there who's healthy. He wasn't really healthy all year. He had a knee issue at one point. He had a toe problem. He had an ankle problem. I mean, not to mention he was getting teed off on. It was only him and Keenan Allen at a certain point. Like nobody else was doing anything. They had a hard year. I mean, they did. But I think once you take injuries out of the equation, if that team can stay healthy, I think the Chargers definitely make a good push. Now, for our last team, so we are, 5 in here. For my last team, and this is going to be in the AFC South. Listen, and first of all, I should say this first. I love what the Houston Texans did last year. Super happy for them guys. I absolutely love I love the head coach. I love the QB. I love the receivers there. Hell of a year for them guys. But I do have a sophomore slump hitting against Houston. I do have the slump coming. CJ Stroud, all them guys. I think they're going to still be pretty good. I just think it's going to be very competitive this year. Trevor Lawrence is back. Anthony Richardson's back. Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator, the head coach there has been great. And $60 million in cap space for the Colts. And Doug Peterson had a really good coaching year early on last year. There were some struggles, but a lot of that was injuries as well. They lost Christian Kirk a bunch of times. The run game if they could make a couple moves in Jacksonville, they might take this spot from the Colts.
Well, they also lost Trevor Lawrence for 2 or 3 games as well.
I mean, I will say in this spot, you can go with the Colts or the Jaguars, depending on what you believe each team is going to do this year. Because it's kind of close. Obviously the Colts are losing Pittman. We're not sure how the run game is going to be yet, but also in Jacksonville, we've seen Lawrence be great. We've seen him be terrible. Are they going to give him any more weapons this year in the draft or in free agency? There's a lot of question marks there. But I think either way, no matter what, even if things stay as they are, I think either the Jags or the Colts are taking my last spot here to make that final playoff push. I'm taking the Colts. I like Anthony Richardson a lot. I thought he looked phenomenal when he did play. There were some injuries, obviously, but I thought he looked really good in that offense before he went down. So I'm gonna give the edge to the Colts. I think Richardson's gonna be a good talent for a long time to come. I'm gonna go Colts there.
Yeah, that's not a bad argument. It just depends. Like if they can bring Michael Pittman back, that's a huge weapon for him.
Yeah.
Obviously keeping Jonathan Taylor healthy and happy is a big thing. But I think they shouldn't go on a limb and try to use Zach Moss as a trade weapon. They need to keep him and keep that 2-head monster back there.
I agree 100%. So I keep clicking on stuff. I don't know what's going on here. I do this every week. I can't remember which one has the slide that I'm looking for on it. But yeah, I mean, so 100%. But now, did you have any other teams that we did not go over yet, or was that everybody?
No, I mean everybody else. I mean, you look at each division. There's those bottom teams that just aren't really close right now. You know what I mean? Like they don't have enough to make me say, okay, yeah, they're one piece away from being a contender. You know what I mean? So I think the teams that we listed, that are new teams can make some noise, and then you have the usual suspects.
Yeah,
So
there you have it. I mean, if Colin Cowherd is right, and if there are, and again, it isn't average. It's not like he's right. It's just the NFL proves it. If there are 6 new teams, those are the ones that we have. Feel free to comment. Let us know who your 6 are. We're about to hop off of here in just a minute. However, one thing I do want to give a quick shout out, like I always do, like we always do on the show. Quick little shout out to some of our buddies here. Obviously we have the Triple B Experience podcast with Big Bad Brother Brewer over there. Great guy, does all kinds of wrestling stuff, Steelers stuff, football stuff. Check him out. You got Pro Wrestling Extreme Talk with Larry and his buddies there with Reese and JJ. Buckle to Buckle with Kal-El, and ignore the quote things. I don't work there anymore, so that's a pretty old one. And then, so just to move on here, final thing, obviously our favorite sponsor here for the show right now is AJB Sports Shop. Make sure you check them out on Facebook or on the internet at ajbsportshop.com for anything that you're looking for merchandise-wise for your team, another team, college, NFL, you name it. He has it. Check them out, and we will be partnering with them with maybe some gift cards here in the future. So AJB Sports Shop, check them out. Even if you want an ugly towel, I call them ugly towels. You call them terrible towels. I call them
terrible.
And the last thing here, we will be posting on the channel here. I do have to get the setup here. We are doing that giveaway. Do not forget for the NFL draft. We will probably be cutting it off a day before the draft, so we have a chance to kind of figure out how we're going to go about it. So the day before the draft kicks off, we will shut it down. So there's going to be pinned on the Facebook page a link to a draft, to a projected, whatever you want to call it, your mock draft. You only get 1 entry per person. So keep in mind, you're not going to spam us with 8,000, expect us to look through 74 million mock drafts. So we will be posting on the Facebook page soon a mock draft for you to fill out. Send it in with your first and last name. And then obviously we will keep track of that during the draft. Whoever has the most first-round picks correct by team will win a $25 gift card or $50. Depends on where we're at. We don't know yet. We're going to decide on that. No matter what, it's a free $25 or $50 thing, and half of you guys already post on Facebook for free. So feel free to make one and send it in. But before we get out of here, Frey, anything else that you wanted to hit on real fast? Or
I don't think so. And if you guys haven't got tired of my voice, I'm getting ready to hop on the Steelers realm after this. I'll talk just strictly Steelers.
I feel bad for you.
So follow me over there. If not, have a good rest of your weeks, and I will catch you next Thursday. Maybe have a lot more to talk about. See what some dominoes fall here.
Yeah. So, and we appreciate you guys, like always, for tuning in. Obviously, we do this for you guys. We say it every week, but I'm going to say it every single week because it's always true. We do this for you guys. We love having you guys. So do us a favor, like, comment, share, tell everybody about it. If you know somebody who's a football fan, just tell them to check it out. They don't like it, so be it. They love it. Welcome to the club. So, feel free to check us out, share us around. We are on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. One thing I cut off is Instagram. We're not doing Instagram anymore. It's wasting my time. So with that being said, guys, you guys have a great rest of your work week. Have a fun weekend. Be safe.